Good. So tell me about your podcast, Ike.
Yeah. And so I'm talking with other people who are also effective communicators in what they're doing and looking to spread the word about what they're doing so they in turn might spread the word about what I'm doing, because I can't be the cause of effective communication in the world by myself. I need a team. And I'm not asking anybody to sign on or, give blood. It's just a question of, if people like the system and the model that I created, to start using it and tell their friends about it, because it works in business and in life. So that's about me. And
that sounds great. And
that's my podcast.
It sounds great. I mean, I'm a keynote speaker, executive coach, trainer, best-selling author, former NFL athlete. Yeah. I have really built our brand on keynote speaking. I built our brand on how to leverage and put us in the position of achieving success at the highest level through communication, learning how to actively listen, and all that kind of good stuff. So everything you're speaking, Ike, is my language. And I love to be a guest on your podcast because I'm all about just getting out there. And I actually had an NFL Brotherhood reach out to me. I did a podcast. It was called the Sober Guy Podcast probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he listened to it like yesterday or the day before. And he reached out to me. We're having a phone call tomorrow just to catch up and talk some business. But you never know who's going to listen to your podcast. You never know who might affect or might make a difference. So anytime I can get onto a podcast that aligns with our brand's values, Ike, I'm all about it.
Well, that's excellent. And I'm curious, other than Marques Ogden, which is certainly a brand in and of itself, what is your brand?
So our brand is, we inspire people to take accountability. That's our brand. And we do it through our speaking, through our coaching, our consulting. And I learned a long time ago from one of my NFL coaches, he was actually my rookie head coach, Jack Del Rio, that you are your own CEO. And Jack was trying to let us know that we are our own business, our own brand. We have to communicate what we want. We can't just, even though we worked for the Jaguars as young athletes, our brand was more than just football. It was like, how do you conduct yourself in the community? How do you talk to the media? How do you interact with the youth? How do you interact, with, at-risk, situations? How do you handle people who might have mental illness or mental health issues? So I learned from Jack as a young 22-year-old rookie in the National Football League that I am my own CEO, and all that I do in business, you are a brand. No matter who you are or who you work for, your brand's going to be 24/7, and that's going to be who you are.
I urge clients to think of themselves almost as split personalities, and one is the manager of the asset called them. Mm-hmm. And the question is, how can you remain curious, objective, and neutral about that asset that you're managing in such a way that you're guiding and informing that asset in a way that's in the best interest of the brand? And it's so hard to get people to detach themselves because it's always, but I need to, I have to, and it's really a big challenge on that. May I make an observation?
Sure.
I deal with a lot of people and have dealt with a lot of people regarding brand strategies. And what I have found out is most people collapse their brand strategy and their slogan and end up not really able to have their work guided by their brand. And if I can give an example, if I say the happy, fun place to have a hamburger, what in our society comes to mind?
McDonald's.
Right. That is their brand. And in keeping with that brand, who is their mascot?
Ronald McDonald.
It's a clown.
The clown, right.
What is their children's meal called?
Happy Meal.
And what do they have at each of the stores that makes it a fun and happy place to have a hamburger? A playground.
Playground. Right.
So everything is in keeping with their brand strategy. That is not their slogan. That is the strategy that guides and informs everything that they did. I just worked with a a man who owns a picture framing store. You know, they have so many names for picture framing that it makes you nuts. Fast frame, quick frame, ready frame, etc. And he's a guy about my age with a thick European accent. And I said, you don't have to change anything. Just get that brand strategy and you'll set yourself apart from your competition. And I suggested that he change his name from We Frame It to Old World Framing. We take longer and it shows. And if you had the Mona Lisa at your house, would you go to Ready Frame or would you go to Old World Framing? And that's what I try to share with people in training so that they can start to look at the brand that really sets in a world of competition, your brand answers the question, why you?
Right.
And that to me is always a fun thing to talk about. So I hope I didn't step on any toes. It's just wanted to share something that I really love.
Not at all. Not at all. I think that's great. And I think there's a lot of things we would have a lot of great interest on the podcast and have some great dialogue. So no, you didn't step on any toes at all.
So I had a couple questions. One was when you look out at your marketplace and you see the people that you serve best, what challenge are they facing that you are able to deal with and solve and make the biggest impact?
The problem people are having right now, today more than ever, Ike, is how to sell in the digital space, because a lot of things have been taken away from us, like the old-fashioned networking, going to events, meeting people, shaking hands. A lot of things are happening now virtually, digitally, and a lot of people are not used to that. You know, we've been using social media for many, many years, and because we had a great position with that way before the pandemic hit, we were able to have a very good year last year and actually increase revenue almost 20% when a lot of businesses, unfortunately, were going out. So that's a major problem that our marketplace is having, and we do a lot in that area to help them, solve those issues.
So, give me an example. Who is your target market? Do you have a description of the listeners all over the world, and I want them to say, send some business to Marques? Who should they look at?
So they should look at people like, entrepreneurs. And so basically my are corporate. So entrepreneurs, business owners, and executives and organizations that are trying to find ways to improve efficiency and get more profitability to their bottom line. So I have, one-on-one clients that are doing things in entrepreneurs in real estate. I have clients who are executives in real estate companies, mortgage companies. I have one of the largest manufacturers and producers of ketchup in our country is my consulting client, Red Gold Quality. So, entrepreneurs and business owners and executives and organizations that are trying to improve bottom line efficiencies is my client, is my target client.
And that's great. Plus, it can't feel too difficult for someone to say, yeah, I'm working with Marques Ogden. Right. that can't hurt. Well, it's not like you became a success overnight as an overnight success. You put in the time, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because in this crazy era when people are being blindsided, literally, when their protection has broken down and all of a sudden they find themselves laid out, a lot of people go, my gosh, I've never experienced this before. How do I get past this? How do I get up and go run another set of plays in my business? And I know that you've had great ups, and you've also, had your share of the other side of the coin. And I'm, first of all, acknowledge you for being the type of person and human that you and I probably coach people to be, which is shake it off and get back out there. That doesn't define you. It was just something that happened. What was it that helped you become who you are today with all of the ups and downs you faced?
I had a pivotal moment when I was a custodian after I lost my business. I had lost all of my money. I had lost my home. I had lost my cars, and I was basically almost penniless. I had $400 to my name total when I moved here, and I took a job as a custodian, making $8.25 an hour, to help our family pay bills. And I was doing football training and doing that as a side job from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. And I had a pivotal moment where I was taking out somebody's trash, and it's called my spoiled milk moment. And so much trash and rotten meat, banana peels, I got all over my bare my body. That's when I realized if I don't change, that I'm never going to be the person I want to be. I'm always going to be what I call living that I used to be syndrome and feel sorry for me syndrome, not trying to find ways to get up, get out, and move forward and help other people not make the same mistakes I did.
Mm. And was there one thing that your mind, what was your aha moment? In addition to what you just said, was there something you heard, something you read, something you saw that gave you the trigger for your motivation?
Oh, I remember listening to Tony Robbins talk about that. If you haven't failed, you haven't tried. And so when I realized, and I was actually listening to that, when I was a custodian, on my different podcasts that I had, as I was working, I'll never forget hearing that. And I said, okay, so I failed in my construction business. It's not the end of the world. And that kind of got me going to trigger to really move my life in a bit different direction. Then I had the spoiled milk moment. So between that aha moment and the spoiled milk moment, I was ready to go full circle and get my life back together.
And of all the industries and businesses that you could have chosen, what led you to the field of communications coaching? And I guess that's a duh after all of the coaching you've been through, but communicating into someone's brain, especially once you realize that we really can't teach anybody, all we can do is cause people to think about what they might and should be doing. And what got you into this part of the business?
Well, what got me into this part of the business was I wanted to help former NFL athletes not go bankrupt like I did by educating them on what I had gone through. As a result of making that decision, I then realized and learned that other people had similar mistakes to athletes, maybe not to the same financial magnitude, but they were still having some issues and some things to deal with. And that's when I realized that, combined with my past business experience, it would be very, very good for me to utilize this as a way into helping people learn how to not make my same mistakes.
Excellent. Do you remember the name Danny Shays?
Yes, I have heard the name before, yes.
A pro basketball player. His dad was a big coach, Dolph Shays. And I was at a program with Danny, and we were talking, and he did something similar for NBA players. So I just need to acknowledge those who, I use that word a lot, but I really mean it, to give back to the community, especially when you realize from such, being so close that it's really needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm curious, what is your internal dialogue about selling? I mean, when you think about, oh man, I need to close this deal for a speaking engagement or a coaching thing, how does selling fit into that mindset?
Selling fits into the mindset by me having a 5-step process to hitting that mark and closing sales in the most efficient manner. And the real essence of selling to me is going to be your strength. And I use that for my S in my acronym sales, the strength of your brand and who can vouch for your brand. And that's the hardest part for people when they start out in business, speaking, coaching, whatever the case may be. Getting those testimonials, getting that credibility, getting those people to say, yes, Marcus or yes, Ike is great at what they do. Because I tell people all the time, I tell this to my clients a lot, what you say builds your self-confidence. What others say builds your book of business. And I've now worked for 19 Fortune 500 companies, Ike, in the last almost 5 years. And the first one to get was hard. And once I got the first one, which came from my inner circle, I got a testimonial letter. Then I got 2. Then I got 3. Then I got 4. And now I'm up to 19. I just got hired by Goldman Sachs yesterday to work for them this month in January. So that's the real essence to me of selling, is the strength of your brand and people knowing that when they invest the dollars and the value they're going to get back, it's going to be 10x in return.
That's really interesting. It's so funny because what that stirred up in me was the statement that it doesn't matter who you know, it matters who knows you. And
Correct.
That really, well, first of all, congratulations. That's a very powerful business model. I know that a lot of the clients that I had and a lot of my friends who we now don't see each other as often as we used to talk about the impact of this and how the being in the home and not having this contact has really turned them into introverts, and they really are not open to speaking to people who might have solutions for them because they're caught up in their salesman conversation where they're, that's always a fun test for me. Without thinking about it, what's the first word that comes to mind when you say salesman?
Buy something from me. I mean, a product. I want your money.
Oh, you're a fine man, because most people come back and go pushy, used car, liar, and these are usually salesmen responding to me. So I asked them, based on that internal dialogue, how do you manage to sell anything at all? And that goes back to something I think you were talking about who are these people being when it's time to make the the pivot into that next stage of their business or their career, and how do you find that out? So, kudos to you for helping them find that out.
Thank you, sir. It's very important to me.
The biggest challenge that you've faced, even with the biggest challenge that you faced in becoming a coach and a mentor on this level, what would that be?
Getting my first client, getting someone to say, yes, Marcus, I'll take a chance and hire you with no real experience, with no real track record, with no real substance of value, or I call it social proof. And once I was able to get my first client in the business, which I started the business in 2016 coaching, and I had to shut it down because I didn't get any clients for almost a year and a half. I reopened it a year later in 2018, got my first client, and now I've probably coached about 100. I've coached about 100 people in the last 3 years through our program, and it's been great. But getting that first person to say, I will give you my money in exchange for the value you can add to my life, was the hardest part of me starting this business.
Interesting. Because we have a lot of people who are new sales people that I talk to, who write to me, and they're always asking about that early stage of their career, because I really don't teach people how to get appointments or get interviews. My job is from when they walk in and say hello to when they walk out and go, it's going to be great working with you. And I'm always interested in finding out the different approaches people might use. And I wouldn't mind brainstorming when someone doesn't have that list of referrals that's just, right there that you can hand someone. Tell me some of the tactics that you might recommend early on to help people, use your services that first time. And this can be general. It doesn't necessarily.
You have to trade your services in a lot of times discounted or free in exchange for references and testimonial letters. That's what I did with my first speaking client, NetApp, which is a Fortune 500 company out of San Jose, California. I worked for them and took care of my travel, my lodging, my food, but I got no pay for my services. In exchange for no pay, I asked for a testimonial letter to use to help show other Fortune 500 companies that I have experience working with other companies of that size and of that realm. And that worked very well in the beginning of my career. And now today, I no longer have to trade, my time for that because I have enough social proof to show people I am good enough to do and bring value to your organization.
Business is the ability to solve other people's problems and get compensated for it. And compensation is not necessarily monetary. And
Correct.
if what you got ended up being a valuable asset, then I think that that's a gem that you've just brought up, that, people think, well, I don't want to give my stuff away for free. You're not giving it away for free. If you have that as your plan. It's so many that I talk to would never really think of that because it's outside their comfort zone of, well, wouldn't that be like begging? Oh, please let me do it for you. And then you'll write me a letter and people will like me. And, how do you tell people, because you are talking about raising confidence levels, what would you recommend to somebody who's coming from that angle and still needs to go in and use that tactic of saying, hey, I could use a referral. Let me show you how.
So I would tell people that every expert was once a beginner. And if you want to reach maximum success, you have to start out in any business and gain that confidence of your buyers. And if you're not willing to do that, then don't even bother starting the train down the track because you're going to end up getting off cue and you're going to be very mad that you wasted your time. So I always knew I was going to trade that in the beginning, and that was part of my plan. I was just hoping and praying that I would eventually get a job and go from there that was paying me. But I knew I needed to get that social proof in my archive to move forward as a speaker.
That's excellent. When you go out and give speeches, presentations, what is the topic that you share?
Oh, it varies. It could be sales, and it could be marketing and sales. It could be branding. It could be leadership. It could be diversity and inclusion. It could be how to pivot. It could be how to grow your business. Very fortunate from a lot of my experiences in the National Football League, being a business owner that was successful and lost it all. I have a lot of different talks that go across different platforms to help many different clients that need different services and different things to help add value to organizations.
All that you share, speak about, and teach, what is your personal favorite?
I love the pivot talk I do right now on how to help people pivot out of situations, then help them see there's brighter days ahead if they learn how to reposition themselves to achieve success, whatever that might be in their eyes.
Can you give an example of a repositioning that someone might say, oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, like I had to pivot from being a custodian into a speaker. I had to pivot myself and I had to get training. I had to realign myself. I had to retrain my brain, my thinking process in order to be where I am today as a speaker. And I had to get rid of all the anxiety, stress, the anger that I had from failing in my first business. If I did not pivot to do that, I would not be where I am today because I would still be holding on to what I call excess baggage.
You mentioned that you had, in this pivot, had to learn some new skills. How did you go about learning those skills on a limited budget?
I got it with a coach. I mean, I didn't have much money at the time I did it, but I invested pretty much what I had into a coach and learned how to take my past experiences from the National Football League and business to be able to speak the language of corporate America, which allowed me to put myself in the best position to have a chance to succeed in my craft.
Yeah, it's all in the language, and it's so hard to describe that to somebody when the communication that you might use, if you just shift it a little bit or turn it into a question and allow what something you said before, basically when they say it, it's true. When you say it, it's selling. How do you frame that communication so they tell you why it's a good idea to use your service?
Correct.
And, you really need someone to tell you that that type of communication is even available. So good for you for getting a coach. And if there was one thing that the coach shared with you early on that gave you an aha, what was that? You remember?
That coach, yeah, of course. It told me that football and corporate business is one and the same. It just uses different language and terminology to get things done. Learn what you had in football. Learn how to speak the corporate terminology. You can have success marketing as a speaker, coach, trainer, and an author. And it took a lot of work and a lot of pivoting and readjusting, but we are where we are today. Without my coach and his team and program, we would not be here today. That's for sure.
Well, there's quite a referral. Write it down, send it to him, and someday he may gain 19.
Love it. Love it.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you something about your football career, and that is during the time of a rock'em sock'em slugg'em football star, what part did your communications effectiveness play among your teammates and during games?
As an offensive lineman, it was everything. It allowed me to communicate with people at the highest level. It allowed me to be able to talk to my teammates. And as 5 people trying to get a job done, effective communication is absolutely critical as an offensive lineman. Without it, you can't succeed. So communication was a huge part of my job as offensive lineman in the National Football League.
Talk about delegating assignments in the midst of battle, huh?
And under intense pressure, and you have to react in a millisecond. Absolutely.
Well, I joke about the whole overnight success thing, and so many of the prospects that come to me with their issues are people who believe that this transformation happens quickly, and that when they find out that the overnight success that some of us have, been very delighted to experience, took 20 years, took 10 years, took 2 years. Excuse me again. And the I want it all and I want it now mentality may work in some arenas, but very rarely in the arena of success.
Oh, there is no overnight. There no overnight. There is no overnight success. There absolutely is none. Everything you do in life takes time. It takes effort. If you can't put the work in, then don't even bother starting.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing what I believe is a perspective that very few of us have. And as an aside, as a younger man in Cleveland, Ohio, one of my best friends and my father's sister's son, my first cousin, Mike Harris, was the senior Associated Press writer for Northeast Ohio. And he knew my love of sports and my love of the Browns. And he got me in as a stringer. And I would go into the locker rooms of all of the major league teams that would travel through Cleveland, either winners or losers, and get quotes. And you talk about falling in love with the game from a different level. So I just want to let you know I'd never done what you've done, but I was right there.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
I do have one question or one request, and that's if there's one thing that you could share that you believe is a very important thing for the listeners of the Close the Deal Selling podcast to take on and really do, what that might be. And second, if there's some way, and I know that there is, that people can get in contact with you. I don't want you to go without telling us how to get in touch with you.
So 2 things. One, you have to believe it before you see it. If you don't believe in yourself and have strength and conviction that you can get something done, nobody else will. And people can reach me, go to our website, www.marques, Ogden, OGDEN.com. Send us a note, hit us up. There's a text me button on there, or shoot us an email, Marques_Ogden@yahoo.com or Marques@MarquesOgden.com. Get in touch with us and chat with us today.
Excellent. I really want to, on behalf of all the listeners, thank you for taking time out of what I know is a action-packed schedule to come and spend some time with us here on the Close the Deal Without Selling podcast. And I do have one request, and that's during this very crazy time that we're going through, that you, your family, and the people that you care about, you all stay safe.
You do the same. All right. Thanks for having me on, my friend. Have a great day.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.